Here's how this untapped real estate strategy will make you a millionaire in 2026. If you don't believe me, my name is Daniel. I'm 20 years old, and just in the past few months, I've closed on over 35 real estate wholesale transactions. And here are some assignment fees just to show for it. Now, why this exact method prints? It's not saturated like a regular wholesaling real estate. It puts more money in the seller's pocket, and it's a higher trustworthy process for the seller. And at the end of the day, it's higher profit margins for you as well. How does it work? Three simple steps. One, the acquisition process. Two, the setup. Three, the dispo process. And four is when you get paid out. The acquisition process. Just like every other wholesale real estate lead you can get, cold call, SMS, direct mail, PPL, PPC, whatever it is, essentially the process starts just in any other way. And once the lead enters your CRM, we really get going. Essentially, it's the same discovery call. Remember MTCA, motivation, timeline, condition, asking price. But what we're looking for this deal to qualify as a novation is one, when it comes to the motivation, we're looking as a motivation to sell and get rid of the property, but the owner is not willing to take a massive loss on the property. Secondly, when we're looking at timeline, the owner is looking to get the process started, but rather to wait a little and get more on the property than to close right away and lose more money on the home. Condition. You can list anything on the market, so this does not matter too much, but it will affect the offer we get slash what we can list it for. And essentially, the most important part is it affects who our end buyer is. Is it a first-time home buyer? Is it an investor, right? The property's condition depends on that. Now, asking price. The owner is not willing to take a massive loss on the deal, so essentially a cash offer, but he is willing to work with us on numbers, and he's willing to get around 80 to 85% of what his property is actually worth. The two biggest factors that decide if this is a cash or a novation deal is one, it's a regular cash process where we offer 30-day close, covering all closing costs. Sellers hear this all the time, right? And our offer is lower because we're looking for an end buyer who buys at 0.7 of ARV, right? So it's the regular wholesaling model, the cash. But with novation, the way you underwrite is so different that you get so much more for the property, and so does the owner. So it's genuinely just a win-win. For example, when we do a cash deal, our underwriting is ARV minus repairs times 0.7, which is what the investor is going to buy the property off of us for. And then from there, we subtract our desired assignment fee on how much we want to make. And essentially, that's going to be our first offer to the seller. But with novation, all we look at is as-is value, and I'll explain what as-is in a second, times 0.9 minus our desired assignment fee. So automatically, you subtract so much less, and you get such a higher number that the seller is automatically more likely to like your offer and accept. So what is as-is value? As-is value is essentially what a property in its current condition will sell for on the open market. Essentially, we look for properties in similar condition to our subject property that recently sold on the market and see how much exactly it was sold for. For example, our subject property is a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,600 square feet, and it just needs cosmetic modernization, right? So we just need to bring it up to par to the 2026 standards. Now, we choose the 3 most identical properties to our average condition. And after averaging the sold prices of all 3, we get an average as-is value. Essentially, just like regular ARV, where we look at 3 comps that have sold, we're looking for 3 properties that are currently on the market or have sold. So for example, we get an average as-is value of $200,000. $200,000 times 0.9 equals $180,000. The reason we do 0.9 is because this 10%, when we divide 200,000 times 0.9, essentially we subtract 10%. That 10% we're subtracting is the money that we use to cover the closing costs, the agent commissions, and other surprises that might pop up along the way. As with an novation, you're covering every cost along the process. So it could be taking photos, it could be fixing, a leak, it could be fixing the furnace, something like that. But let's say we want to make $20,000 on this deal. We would do $180,000 minus the $20,000, which equals $160,000. So essentially, we would list the property on the market for $200,000. Anything between $180,000 and $200,000 is commissions that we are covering. Remember, seller's commission, agent costs, closing costs. Anything under $180,000 is our profit on this deal. So the lower we get the seller from 180,000, the more profit we make. The benefit here is that the number that we agree on with the seller is what he is walking away with as we cover all commissions, right? So just like a regular cash offer, but instead of the seller making $100,000 on this deal, he's going to be walking away with the number that we agreed on with the seller. Now that we know how to underwrite, how do we explain this process to the seller? The setup. You obviously want to anchor with the cash offer because the cash offer is automatically going to be lower just because that's the way the numbers are ran. You come in low with a cash offer, so it makes your novation offer sound so much better. This is key because once you come in with a low offer, they expect to be in that range. Once they say no to your cash offer and you say, hey, we have another option for you, and you come in with a novation offer that is going to be 30 to 40% higher, that automatically changes the game. Now, the pitch. Literally copy this word for word. Hey, Mr. Seller, we actually just started up something in our company that I was able to get your property approved for. It's called our equity maximization program, where essentially we can get you more for your property. If instead of closing in 30 days, we would close in about 45 days. Now, the reason we close in 45 days and not 30 is because we're going to need to list the property on the market. Showings take a little bit more time. Some people are going to have to get approved for conventional loans. So it's a little bit of a longer process because we're also going to be working with the banks here. We're not talking about a full cash deal. At the end of the day, the seller is going to get his cash, but the buyer is going to get funding from a bank, so they're going to have to run their inspections and all that stuff. What we do is we partner up with our in-house agents and list the property on the open market for you. But you still reap all the benefits of a cash offer as we cover all closing costs, agent commissions. So the number that me and you both agree on, that's the number that's going to go into your pocket at the closing table. Now that's the biggest line here because now he knows that he's walking away with a number without having to pay any commissions. And finally, the close. I know you didn't like our cash offer, and then say the number that you offer. For example, I know you didn't like our cash offer of $120,000, but with our equity program, you can get all the benefits we just spoke about, and then you're going to list all of these benefits right here, and we're actually able to come in at, and then your novation offer. For this example, we're actually able to come in at $155,000. How does that sound to you, Mr. Seller? He's automatically going to like that $155,000 number way more than 120,000, all for just waiting 15 days. So essentially, he's going to be making an extra $35,000 for just waiting 15 days, which he has usually no problem of doing. Once you wait for the yes, you send out an agreement. It's not a regular wholesale agreement. You're going to need a pre-marketing clause in there. So DM me on Instagram and I'll send you the novation agreement that I personally use. Now, get it signed by the seller, and step 2 begins. Step 2, the setup. Now that it is under contract, you can't just list it on the market as you are not a licensed real estate agent. So you're going to have to partner up with an agent in your area. You're going to call the agents in your area and tell them this. Hey, I am a wholesaler and I have a deal locked up in your area and I have the marketing rights for it. We have a pre-marketing agreement signed which allowed me to list the property on the MLS. Let's partner up, you list it for me, and I will pay you your commission. The agent is rarely going to say no to this unless their brokerage doesn't allow it, which happens, but it's rare because essentially you're giving the agent a free listing. And agents scramble for listings, so for them to get a free listing by just listing the property for you without having to go through all the bullshit of talking to the seller and getting him to sign is an automatic yes. Once you get a yes, the next steps are on the agent you work with. They will most likely send you a listing agreement that you will sign on behalf of the actual seller because remember, you have the marketing rights for the property. Once signed by you, the agent will list the property on the MLS and they do their job from there. You cannot control it now. So step 3, the dispo process. This is a good representation. Not doing shit. You literally don't do anything. You are paying the agent a commission for a reason. So while the property is on the market, the agent schedules the showings, answers the phone calls, and receives the offer. Every time the agent gets an offer, she will tell you what it is, and if you like it, you accept. Once accepted by you, she will send you an agreement to sign, usually called an acceptance letter, essentially meaning you agree to the offer and are ready to move forward to the closing table. For example, you accepted an offer of $200,000. The offer came in of $200,000. You and the seller agreed on $155,000. About 10% of commissions, usually less, but it's better to be safe than sorry. So $200,000 minus $20,000 equals $180,000. So there's $180,000 left in the pot after all agents and closing costs have been paid. You and the seller agreed on $155,000. So 180 minus $155,000 equals $25,000. The seller walks away with his promised 155, and you are left with a pure profit of $25,000 on this one single deal, with literally doing 50% of the work, as the agent did the entire dispo process for you. This is a rinse and repeat system that allows you to consistently close on deals without them falling through. And it's nothing but a win-win situation. Seller walks away with more cash for his property, which equals a much easier acquisition process. The agent gets paid and handles the entire disposition process for you. So essentially, you do zero dispo and have more time to focus on other acquisitions. And 90% of the time, it's more profit for you with doing much less work. That's pretty much all there is to novations. DM me on Instagram for a free novation agreement and my entire acquisition blueprint, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.